going to turn some cubes, but instead of having it long grain or side grain, we're going to do it crooked. We're going to do it on, I don't think it's the right thing to say it's 45 degrees because it's 3D, and so it's 45 degrees on 45 degrees, so it's like 73 degrees. Forget that stuff.
Corner to corner.
Corner to corner, opposite corners. And so the things you have to remember, most people know there are 6 sides on a box. There are 8 edges, 12 edges, sorry, and 8 corners. And so we're going to look at the 4 pairs of opposite corners. And I've drawn on this little one. I've sort of drawn it so you can see there's going to be 3 sides coming off of any corner instead of 4. So Tracy, can you hold up the piece by that other guy who came here once? Jimmy Cruz. So this is a piece that's turned out of a square piece of wood, and it's pretty obvious what it is. It's very beautiful, but it's also, there's no mystery about it. It's gorgeous. But the fact that it's square is not mysterious at all. You just say, oh yeah, a square piece of wood. He whipped it on the lathe, and left the edges. But when you show someone, when you show up with a 3-sided bowl, or a 3-sided, this is some kind of rockabye thing that I imitated Mark St. Leger. He came and did a club demo a couple years ago and did this 3-sided rockabye baby piece. You can also turn them over and make a Ikebana style thing. Put a hole in the top and put a frog. You can put candlesticks in here. But the fact that it's got 3 sides and there are these flats on there, there's a little mystery there. In fact, there's so much mystery that most people, I don't think, could figure it out unless they get told how it's made. And that's what you guys get to find out tonight.
And then you're going to kill us? And
then I'm going to kill him. What I'm really going to kill is Bob Byrne, because he's the one who started this whole thing. He brought a piece in. There he is. He brought a piece in that was much taller than this one in about February. It's a dark piece with 3 points. And I was taking pictures, and you can't believe how many times I heard somebody say, "How did he make that? How did he make that?" And so I started talking to Chris, and he said, "Why don't you do a demo?" So I agreed to, but what I really should have done is point a finger at you. And so, idea. I think it was somebody else. Yeah. So I've seen this several times throughout years, and it's just interesting. You can make it a high precision task if you like. One of the things that I did not succeed on this piece is this one corner. I got the cuts to meet right in one.
I got you here.
I got the points all to meet pretty closely right here on this corner. But if you notice on these 2 back corners, the points didn't meet.
That is pretty tricky to do.
And it's very tricky. You need to have a very, very accurate cube of wood. And I was going to talk about mounting next. How do you get this thing mounted?
Can't fix it on the belt sander?
Not once you cut it off. That's what I love. When I moved to North Carolina, one of my favorite expressions here is you can cut it on. Cut on the lights, would you? So the way that these things are typically mounted, take this one first. You just take the base and you put it right into the Morse taper hole. There's no other mounting than that. I trimmed the top of this so that I could have a little room to mount it with this point tip.
If you knock that pin out, you can use that hole too.
Oh,
I think the pin is.
I will do that.
Is the pin out?
No, it's not.
Okay, you need the pin out.
Take it out, you can mount it and move it around.
So I drew this way. If I spin this up, then I'll spin it slowly. If it works.
This is like the thing that will be.
Oh, who did that? Somebody playing tricks on me? Doesn't make a difference.
Oh, you want electricity?
I don't want electricity. If you spin this up, if you're standing over here, you can't see that triangle, but if you stand right in line with it, the edges show right up, and I bet these people can all see it. And the rest of you, come back with me. You see it up there, the edges. And so what you have is you've got 3 surfaces on this side, you've got 3 surfaces on this side, and in this middle area that I have not marked, there are 6 surfaces. All six surfaces pass through this middle area. And when it's spinning, you get a dip there. It's a very rounded dip from the 6 edges. So anyway, it's just a different way to do it. So if I were going to try and do a high precision version of this where I wanted all those points to meet, I would do something very different to map this, because when you push it into this hole, you're always going to have 2 edges that have end grain and 1 edge that's side grain. And one of the side grain one is always going to compress easier. So it's always going to scoot offset. I don't care how well you cut it. You're going to compress the grain on that side more. And so I would either make a cone cup or get 3 pieces of plywood and make a corner cup and put a tenon on the back and mount it in your chuck so that it fits very nicely. And then I would do the same thing on the other side.
So a driving corner cup.
Yep, and then it will leave no marks.
Makes sense.
Right, it will leave no marks at all.
You can put a thread that's the same thread as your tailstock and have one on both sides.
Yep.
Mike? You're here, okay.
How do you point out?
Take the knockout bar and knock it through your,
Take your center out and hit it from the back. No. It's the one that comes with
All right.
the one way.
Well, I'll keep talking for a minute.
The one way.
How would you rate that 3 sides?
I would cut 3 45-90 triangles and glue them together. And then the trick comes with turning the tenon in the back. And I believe in my heart that if you do this correctly, he hasn't done it. But I believe that you could put it on. You could somehow put it on a faceplate. You know, if you build it carefully, then it should sit perfectly flat with the point up. And then I would do the same thing. I'll put it in here and turn a tenon on it. I suppose.
Those 1-inch boards we have, the maple and oak, might work.
Nope. Oh, I just wondered. I got to see.
actually you wouldn't have to turn a tenon, just turn a short stub that's papered like the horse paper and just jam it in.
Oh, three-sided thing.
Well, no, the three-sided piece is attached to the tenon.
Oh, really?
Both sides.
So, the first thing I want to make is out of mulberry.
Cube in it.
Quiet.
There's been a bunch of mulberry coming down in my neighborhood. Oh, I meant to tell you. I forgot one part of the announcement. I went to the Wilmington area Woodturners last time they met, less than a month ago. And Graham Priddle was there. And can I look that up?
Graham what?
Graham Priddle.
Graham. Oh, Graham. I don't know Graham.
Just one or the other one?
The other one.
Oh. Okay, so he was the demonstrator?
Yes.
Oh.
Done. So he turns a lot of things. Oh, the thing itself.
We met someone from the
Where you going? Nope, back it up.
The shed.
from the Wilmington Club. You have a very active club there, like 100.
Their club is amazing. They meet in a big church that's being renovated, and it's probably 10 times as big as this room. And Graham Priddle is there. He makes these highly carved pieces. And I don't know if you can see it in the image. There are circles here with some detailing in circles along here, and big carvings, these swooping carvings. He makes a lot of this particular shape. It takes him a week, a full week. He starts on Monday, he finishes Friday night. I think he spends 20 minutes doing the turn. The rest is everything else, all the finishing that he does. This falls under the category that Jimmy Clues was complaining about, how the American woodworker pays too much attention to people who don't really turn. but you still can have a great time. So I went and went down there for his demo, and then the next day was a workshop. And it was a great setup, and they were really nice. Oh, and I won the gallery. I had a Burns mulberry vase with a real wing-shaped nozzle on it. And I didn't bring it because my sister came to visit a couple days later. She saw it and stuffed it in her suitcase. And it's all right because I didn't really like the vase. And but everybody really liked it. And so I'll just have to make another one. I don't have a picture.
You don't want to see the other one?
No, I don't. I'm gonna skip the other one. What's that?
I was asking, you said you went where?
Wilmington? Yeah, so what I wanted to recommend was, in addition to our great club with the really fun demos we have and all the good turners that show up and show us all the pieces, there are lots of clubs in the state. When I started, there was this club and the Hickory Club. And Hickory was pretty far away. And now there's one in Greensboro, there's the Piedmont down near Siler City, there's a couple down by the coast, there's two up in the mountains. All of them are great. The one up in the mountains at the Folk Art Center, that's usually an all-day affair, and they have a lot of money somehow. And they bring in big names, 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock on Saturdays. There's no charge. We've got
If you want to join, it's only $25 a year.
Yeah, you can join. It's a great thing to be a part of. They've really worked hard. So anyway, all I want to say is, there's a lot more resources than just this club. If you can drive an hour or 2 or 3, you can get to a lot of good demos. And so you just have to get the right email or track the right websites and see what's going on. So anyway, this is a piece of mulberry. A lot of mulberry came down in my neighborhood a few months ago. And so that's what I was going to use tonight. I really like mulberry. It's a really pretty color. It cuts really well. Some people call it stringy. It tends to have pretty irregular growth patterns that are not very concentric, which you can use to your advantage, but it can surprise people. So I was going to turn this one first.
Did you put some CA in that crack?
I did put some CA. The heart is right there. So that's why I read
Lars, I got some mulberry recently, and almost
I heard about
the
that.
day after it was cut,
Yeah.
it seemed to have cracks down the middle of it from when it was alive, like almost like it's been sitting out for a year drying. Did you notice any of those type cracks down the heart?
No, I don't notice that, but there's also, there's more, I've seen mulberry grow in 2 different ways, and I think it's the same plant. There's the bushes that grow on the sides of the creek, which is they look like shrubs, and then there's the full trees, right, that look like normal trees. And I think they're the same plant, but I don't really know.
I got 2 pieces that needed a front end loader.
Yeah, I heard about that. That sounded like a pretty good haul. So what I want to do with this piece is the angle of the edge is not the same angle as the face. It's kind of dipping in, even though it's flat. But in a circular way, it dips in. And so right now I've lined up the edge with the tool rest. And I was doing this when I had a pin, but I don't have a pin anymore. I took the pin out of it, so it's a cup. So I have 2 cups, and I'm just going to count on that to center it. And what I want,
pretty much a true cube.
it's pretty close. It's as close as I could get with my 12-inch chop saw, which these days doesn't seem very close anymore. I think I've tortured that thing too many times. What I want to do for this piece is I want to make a bowl that has the sides that are parallel to the sides that are there now. And I'm just going to do a straight cut. There's going to be no curve on this cut. Just going to be one, just perfect straight cut. And I want it to be that way so that when it hits the edges, the bowl will come up, and then the cup, the curving surface, will be perpendicular. And that's my goal. Why? I don't know why. So I'll probably cut it a little bit before I actually get it lined up, because it sticks out quite a bit.
Now, I think Mark St. Later was teaching us that if you put a pencil line on your tool rest and you check those 6 corners coming around, they should all line up to the pencil line, so you know whether you're going to be close to getting the corners being pointed.
So he's saying if I make a pencil mark on the edge of the tool rest and come around, and it's off by an 1/8 inch here, maybe a 1/16 there, so it's not centered.
All right.
So I'm not going to succeed at something high precision.
I usually is try to get that drive center out so it broke good.
I was going to say, who has been chewing my pencil?
I used to bowl gouge to sharpen the pencil there. You wanted the pin out, I was trying to get it out. And like,
Were you nervous about presenting tonight, Lars?
Your bowl gouge. See, you weren't going to admit it unless you got caught.
Can't be honest all the time.
I don't sell very many pieces I make, and I certainly don't try and make a living at it. So I just turn whenever I like, whenever I like, and I don't have to worry about whether it'll sell or not or anything like that. And that was sort of my goal behind the whole operation of turning. I wanted it to just be a hobby. I never wanted it to be on a to-do list. I just wanted a hobby. So anyway, I got this tool a while ago. It's just a nice bowl gouge. My mom got it for me for one Christmas. And these days, before the Wolverine sharpening system came out, I used to just sharpen by hand. And I felt like I was bipolar disorder on my sharpener. Some of those sharpenings, you know, I get back there, this is great, this is great. And other ones I get back there, this is horrible, it's horrible. So once I got the Wolverine though, I took away those good days, but I also, those bad days are never there either. I don't think that the Wolverine gives you the best edge, the best shape of the tool, but it gives you a really consistent one. And one thing that Graham Priddle said is once you really get used to the particular shape that you're getting every single time, then you just, your arms and your body and your legs know exactly how to get right back on the tool rest and get right back into the wood. And so, you know, that all makes sense to me. But I sure do miss those really good days when I got perfect sharpening.
You're going to do a session on bipolar sharpening?
Yeah. You have to bring your heads. The grain is an issue here. There's no uphill and downhill. Everything's turning, wobbling. A lot of people who do turning on bias, turning diagonally, they turn burl because there's no grain or no particular grain. And so it's equally good or bad, whatever you do. This one is just straight up. So actually I'm going to move this to a different set of corners. And hopefully it's a little bit better.
The reason why you do that?
Yeah, because I think the edge I turned it on was the least cubic of the edges.
Least cute.
So let's get this going. I turn on a stubby at home, and I have no idea how fast it's going. It doesn't have to scale like this. I just go until I kind of like it. And so, you know, you're cutting air a lot, and there's not a lot of friction between these two cups. So you can try and stop it. People say you never do this, but I always do. That happens a lot. And then the stubby, the other thing I like about the stubby is this is really stiff. The whole transport mechanism in the headstock is really stiff. So I never use this. So if I forget to use this, guys have to remind me. And this is not what I'm trying. I think I got this tip. Yeah. So you're cutting air along here. So you want to be pressing in the direction of your cut, not into the wood. If you press into the wood, you'll get dips in and out, in and out. The thing will bounce all over the place. And so I really am concentrating about following the cut down and a lot of pressure straight down onto the tool rest so I don't slide in. So I bring it in. And then scoot along the tool rest. I'm still behind. And I've heard one turner, I don't remember who it was, he called the tool rest, he called it a finger rest. He said your finger should be riding right in this cradle here. Your finger should be riding right behind here. And this tool rest is different than mine. My finger fits right in there. You push it right up against the ridge, and then your hand, if you want to make a straight cut, you just follow the tool rest all the way up. And he called it a finger rest, and that's what he said the tool rest was designed for. It was as much to guide your hand as to guide to hold the tool up. But I'm not sure I can do that. That's.
You didn't get as many catches without it. He didn't get as many catches as I did.
Well, and he was only cutting straight cuts. And so I'm going to take a quick look and show you what's going on. So I'm still pretty far away from getting down to a complete circle. Soon it'll be up to here, and what I really want to do now is I want to line the tool rest up so that it matches the angle of this flat surfaces, because this is where I want the 90 degrees to come in. And so that looks pretty good right there. One thing I learned from Terry a long time ago is you can tell this out of the ground by just touching it. And I've got all the flats are gone.
Lauren, you're looking to eventually put a pin in on that bottom piece.
I am. Yep.
Okay. And it's the second set of points, the points closer to the headstock that you're going to...
Yeah, these are going to be the permanent. The other ones are gone already.
That's right.
So 3 of the points that were over here, they're gone. And I'm pretty much, I think I'm just going to leave that where it is. And those cracks I have, I think I'm a lot deeper than I thought. One thing. So a lot of us have the one-way stronghold, this chuck, or the one-way, what's it called, talon, a little over. One thing that I've always been impressed by with professional turners is they all say, use a Vic mark. They do not like the stronghold. So when I was in Wilmington, they had Vic mark chucks on all the club lanes. And what Graham Priddle pointed out was the jaws on the Vic marks are a perfect circle. So they're only a circle when the jaws are completely tight. And so when he cuts a tenon, he makes it, just a 1/4 inch bigger than would fit in, so that when he clamps on, there's still some room. And the jaws are almost completely closed, so that he gets contact on completely around all of 4 jaws. But if you look at the jaws on one leg, they're not a circle. This allows you to open it up quite a bit and have good contact. They've got 8 surfaces essentially with these ridges in here, and it really feels like 8 different surfaces. It's kind of like they took a circle and started to make it into a square. And this allows you, I believe, my feeling is that this allows you to have much bigger tenons and still have good contact all the way around. If you guys like the Vic marks, that's fine. I have one of these. It seems to work pretty well.
There's a little secret that Harry from New Zealand taught me day one with these chucks, and that is he turns the lathe on slow, and he'll actually burn those grooves in to the tenon all the way around.
On each piece.
With the lathe turning.
Yeah.
And that does seem to really change the amount of bite you get with these jars. Huh?
I don't have, I can see that. I don't have any trouble with bite. The only trouble I ever had is I had a bowl that was pretty punky wood, and the whole tenon just came off.
Sure.
The tenon didn't come out.
Right.
It was just a side grain, and it just let go.
I sheared it.
So what I'm doing here is I'm using regular calipers. I love this because these are like $4 at Ace Hardware.
Ace Hardware too. I'm trying to find. We used to have the Lowe's. They don't carry them.
Everything is digital and has a dial. I don't need the precision.
Home Depot.
So I use the inside teeth to measure how wide this is, and I've closed this up because I want to save as much wood as possible. And then I'm just going to ride on it. To give myself a mark. And I'm going to give a little bit more room. And it always looks too small. I'm always sure I've just ruined it. Cut back here because you turn it off. At some point, the grain is going this way through this skinny thing, so it can break really easily at a diagonal. And so this is where we need the glass for our front row folks. And what I try and do here, when I'm not catching, is I'm going to try and turn this little part the same diameter as the sharp part of the cup on here. So that I'm going to flip it around, hollow out the inside, and I'm going to flip it around again to finish off the bottom. And I'll have a way to perfectly align it. Another way you can do this is make a tenon over here, down in the chuck, clean this off, and put a little dip in there so that you can get your headstock back into the exact same place when you flip it around. And this is like a critical trick that is so easy to do and takes years to learn how to do it. So I'm going to go the quicker way. thing I like to do is I could go in, but I get nervous about it, especially on the diagonal grain. So I get out my pruning saw, which again, Ace Hardware, is like $9. And it's a pull, it's like a Japanese saw. And you can just start
Really aggressive Japanese saw.
Yeah.
But you lay the reverse on,
It
right?
doesn't have the teeth pointing in, right? That's
They're-
one of the advantages of that type.
Yeah.
They don't stick out to the side.
And if you just touch this on your
Yeah.
thumb pad, you'll have lots of cute little holes. Cute
Red
little red
holes.
spots.
Red holes. Pretty aggressive.
And the way I get it is this way. And it comes around, whack! But these are really nice saws. And I mean, I've cut down 12-inch diameter trees with this thing in 10 minutes. They're really nice.
That's what
I'm not coming near unless.
that's what chainsaws are for.
Yeah, my power cord's not long. All right, so we're going to flip the thing around now. So I'm putting on the regular chuck and getting rid of this. Oh, these are good. One of the ailments I had badly for a while from the line was I had tennis and golf elbow, both of my elbows, and I couldn't hold a steering wheel for about 6 months. And so lifting that off the lathe, or even just holding the tools, was hard. But that seems to have gone away. All right, feels pretty small. Oh, is that close? Oh, another thing I like to do is I often like to instead of mounting it while it's hanging sideways and getting it crooked. If I'm turning a bowl that has a flat rim, I usually just put the bowl right here. I put the bowl face down and then just put this on top, and it's so heavy it just sets against the edges of the jaws. But this one has, of course, doesn't sit flat, so I do it the opposite way. And this way, I feel like you get a better set of the tenon, or the where you flare it out against the jaws, and so it'll spin truer.
Gravity work.
More often. Yeah, you let gravity work in the way you want it to go. Boy, that couldn't have been much closer.
You get about 30-second hinge opening on those jaws left.
Yeah, there's almost nothing.
It's those cheap calibers.
Those cheap calipers, God darn it, if I just spent an extra nickel. All right, and then one thing that always amazes me is there's more safety warnings on a bottle of dish soap than there are on a lathe. And so I think that turning these things is particularly dangerous, especially once I get this hollowed out and you've got these points whipping around. You get your little finger in there, you'll be sorry. So now I'm just going to hollow it out like you would hollow out a bowl. And I want to maintain a pretty even thickness because the rim is going to start here and then come down in this curve. And so I want this edge to maintain a fairly consistent thickness. And so I'm just going to try and do the opposite cut of what I just did on the outside. I think my lathe, this part is stickier too. I can just undo that. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, and I wanted to show you the triangle that really get in a little bit. So if you go flat across like this, you get a perfect equilateral triangle. And so you can use that as a surface as well. You can use that as the base. You can make something on the top of this and have a perfect triangle on the bottom. And people say, you cut that on something that was going around? Where's the circle, right? You get this beautiful equilateral triangle. And so, like with any bowl, you want your bevel to be going. You want to be chasing your bevel straight in. You don't want to be over like this with your bevel going sideways and trying to cut in. It'll just go shooting backwards. And so I bring it in with the handle way up in front. And then you catch. And you see the edge starting to shape up. I'm just moving it in some so I have not so much reaching out. So now I'm starting to look at this profile on the outside. I'm going to try and follow the same thing straight in. And it's not like we're anywhere near where we need to be yet.
Did it come loose from your chuck?
I don't think so. But I could always tighten it, just to make sure. Get rid of that last 30 second in. It's a little loose.
It doesn't look like it. Something about that.
And also the grain is, sometimes it's this way and sometimes it's this way. So I'm switching to a slightly smaller valve. And I'm getting pretty close to where I want to stop. A little bit more, maybe just a little bit thinner. Royce gave a demo turning some pear, when was that, a year ago? And he showed me how to use a big darn scraper in the bottom of the bowl to clean it up. And so I'm going to do that. The thing you have to do, you have to make sure is that when the cutting edge is at the center, the handle is up slightly. You want the tool to be aiming down. That way if it catches, it pulls away from the wood. I saw some guy right like this. Hollowing out a box.
Smecco.
What did we have? Was it Jerry's house?
Is that Stuart Daddy?
It was at Stuart Daddy's workshop. And
He did it. He got hit. What happened? The handle hit him right between the eyes 3 times. 3 times.
the
2 weeks later, he was
scraper,
asking if anybody had seen round nose straight. It disappeared real quick.
the scraper was bent after he was done. He was a dangerous fellow.
Very scary. Remember that.
Have you ever hollowed one of these? Through the end hole? Yeah?
Not yet.
Over a while.
And I'll call that done on the inside. Now I would, do the normal sander, but I'm going to do that. And I don't think I'm off. So normally I would flip it around and put a round piece of wood in that has a tenon on it. The one that I brought tonight is this really long one. I don't think it'll work for this unless I cover it. I didn't bring it. Normally I would flip it around and remount it right in there like this, and then just take the tenon off and put a foot on it and sand it up and we'll be done. And get this nice 3-pointed bowl. And actually it looks like the bottom could go out a little bit more. But what I really wanted to do is give you an idea. The category of turning that I think this is part of is you start with a piece of wood and you leave some of the original faces of the wood on the turn. Most of the pieces we turn, every part of the wood is cut on the lathe. That's what most people do.
Natural edge.
And this is essentially like a natural edge piece, except the natural edge is from saw and not
I was going to say, where do you find these square trees?
yeah, these square trees. And what I wanted to tell you is, I think it's a good idea to figure out whose turning you would like to turn like. Who do you want to be like? Do you want to be like David Ellsworth or Bob Roseanne or Graham Priddle or Jack Vessery or, pick any name. Who do you like? Whose pieces do you really like? Imitate them. John Jordan, imitate them. Do what they do. You'll find what you like to make. And so the turners I like the most are the Lindquists, Mel and I forget his son's name. They leave a lot of raw chainsaw marks on their finished pieces. And some of them are big. They're big totem style things, big gouge marks. I really like them, but they cause a lot of controversy. Who cares? We have a good time. So anyway, we can have a break now, and we'll do something else after the break. Okay. Side of another shape that I tried this morning. It's kind of interesting, and it's kind of fun to see how it transforms as you turn. And so here I'm just going to put the tool rest straight in line with the lathe. And give it a go. And so I'm just going to come.
Make that 5 corners.
wanted you to see what happens to the shape. Let's see if I've gone anywhere. So look at this curve that happens on this edge of this cube. And I got it too aggressive right there, so we got a big chunk. But you get this nice curve, and it seems like it's a huge opportunity for a design to make use of this wiggling curve. So I'm gonna keep going with it and show you what it turns into. But I'm gonna get a little closer first.
Me too.
So you're actually aiming your cut between the corners that
I'm
you
just
see that
going
goes
straight
strong-
all the way
just going
along.
straight across. Okay.
And I don't know if that's best or not. I think anything out here is difficult. But I'm really pushing forward and not in at all. And so we've taken off a little bit more, and you get just a wider variation in this curve.
It's a sine wave.
It's something. And go a little bit further on that. And I can feel in the middle, it's round all the way, I think, right through here. Yeah.
That was one quick way to find out.
So, you know, you're getting this nice swooping cut back and forth and back and forth. And I mostly just wanted to show you that. And what I made this morning was the same thing. So I just cut straight along, same as this. And I then hollowed it. And the feature I wanted to show here, the point I wanted to make, was the points are sharper. The more you bring the cut up instead of out, so this one was out, and the points aren't so strong. The further up you bring them, the more wicked they get. You get this very strange pattern. And it looks a little dangerous. And then what Bob Burke and I were talking about is, what if you came in here and treated it like a hollow form, and you only cut, you know, through a hole that was an inch in diameter and came in and hollowed out right under these ridges. And we both tried it at various times, and what happens is the grain, especially on this point, where the grain is coming this way across the point, you touch that the wrong way, bam, it just flies off. It's so weak. And so I think something like a madrone burl or something that's really, really hard, really dense, that you cut with a scraper might work for doing that, where they're just so thick, or copaiolo or something or ebony, something that costs you a lot. So when you mess it up, and so then I left the base with the
Dogwood.
opposite forwards, dogwood, boxwood. I left the base edges on here as well, so they're opposite of these top ones. And then I trimmed off the bottom and made a little foot for that. And the idea I had for this, I don't know if it really works, was as a pencil holder, and the short pencils didn't get lost as quickly as they normally do. So, anyways, that was one idea. Here's one that I tried to swing around and come up towards the point. It's not very aggressively, but you can see what happens on the inside.
Now, if you've done the outside and you super glued the outside, you think that would help it from tearing out?
It might. It might. It's really weak when you're cutting this, and
Especially walnut.
yeah, especially this is walnut. The last thing I wanted to point out about these is the grain that you get follows this curve that I've cut on this. You get this swooping up on one side, and on the other side it comes down. And so you get this nice rise and fall as you go around this piece. And so, anyway, and then, so I'm almost done with the edges, the diagonal turning. I know there's something in here. I haven't found it yet. This piece I took this morning, and I mounted it between the centers. And you can see 3 humps that I turned. And I turned it to the next corner. And I wanted to do all 4 pairs.
Sure.
And you start getting these blooms coming out here. And I wasn't sure what I was doing, but I think the thing that I liked about this was you could still see the cube and you could see the turnings. So it wasn't as much of a mystery. These are a mystery. People say, how did you make that? And that might sell more, but you have to explain a lot. Whereas something like this, you would still see the cube for all the turning that you did. And I think there's something really pretty in this sort of design.
That's cedar?
This is cedar. I haven't found it yet, but I'm going to explore this more.
What about on this one? On the 3 faces you expect to hollow out, white gluing newspaper and
Yeah, I thought about that.
1/8-inch plywood or something
So
on those 3 sides in order to support the cut, and then later.
So you're saying if
Yep.
you take your cube and
Yep.
this is going to be your top.
Right.
If you glue some planks
Supporting wood, yeah.
on the 3 sides,
Yes.
The place you're trying to cut is right under this curve.
Right.
And so that piece of wood that you have to support with has to overlap or something to protect it.
Right.
It really has to protect it. But I was exactly thinking this morning, that
Okay.
a piece of brown paper bag with another piece of wood on top.
Yes. Right. Something
Just
you can
like
take
the
off.
people who do the square bowls, like that Jimmy Clues, some people glue on an extra piece.
Yes, because the tear out on 2 of these.
Yeah, they don't get the tear out, they can sand it before they split it off.
Right.
And they can sand it on the lathe. Whereas if you sand these on the lathe, you'll get one edge is really muted
Yeah.
in the direction you sand it, and it looks crappy.
Well, even Jimmy turning really fast with his very sharp tools, he gets some of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what I wanted to do in the last several minutes is one of the things I've been meaning to build for a long time is a wood burner, just an electric wood burner. Frank Penna built one several years ago, and I kind of envied it for a long time. And I kept my eyes open for a used battery charger. It's built with a battery charger and a dimmer switch, and then you make your own tips. And so I finally built one. I was going to this Graham Priddle workshop, and the whole point was to burn. He wasn't doing any turning, he wanted to burn. And so...
and you were interested.
And I was interested. So can you see this at all? Can you see the texture inside? So this is another piece of that mulberry, and I took a branding iron as a spiral, and just by hand I just went all the way around. And then the outside up here, I used sort of a spring shape along that line. And you do this before you're finished turning, because as you scrape the ash off, the outer part here is going to get dusty. And so I left some extra wood out here. There's black paint on this one. So I scraped the ash off, put black acrylic on, and then finished the turn out here and made this little rim. So you get a nice sharp edge of the black. And so that was one experiment. And then on the back, I did a combination of the spring shape and then just dots. And I made them denser towards the center. And I was just trying out lots of different designs. This is another one where this one I made a knife blade and cut the edges and then went back and dotted in between the knife cuts and did it on both sides. Oh, this one, actually, no, this was a little tiny spiral. This is a little tiny circle. And then finally, the last one. This one I left mounted on the lathe, and I just turned it from stop point to stop point to stop point. And just drew pencil lines, 24 pencil lines. And then I took the sharp point that I made and drew these straight lines. I took a spiral and did a spiral in between all of those.
You want me in closer?
No, that's good. And then I dotted in between down here. And yeah, go out just a little bit so you can see the whole thing.
Which Nikon wire did you
I'll show you in a second. So I really like the way this one came out. It's really just a test piece. It still has a big screech-up hole in the bottom because I didn't plan to make this bolt. So it's going to have a hole in the bottom. So I'm going to show you everything that I made. So over here,
I can follow
this is called a variac. It's a transformer. It just takes wall power and cuts it down. It's still AC, and it's got a plug on the front. You can plug whatever you want in it. So I plug a manual battery charger below it. This is just a Sears Die-Hard manual car battery charger. You want the manual ones. All the new ones are automatic. They are watching how much charge is going in and trying to cut it off for you and not burn up your batteries. You don't want this. You want a manual that just turns it off. And a lot of people, instead of using the variac, they use a dimmer switch that you have in your house, a magnetic one. There's a couple different kinds. You have to get the magnetic ones. Because the other ones look at the load coming back and do some switching. I don't know enough electronics to tell you how they work. But so anyway, you cut down the electricity, send it into the battery charger. The battery charger drops it to 12 volts so it matches your car battery. And then I cut off the clips and I just put a regular household plug on. And then I made this device, which is just a hollow piece of walnut. And I took a piece of brass rod.
Just pick a spot, Lars. I'll find it.
I'll stay still. I took a piece of brass rod, knit this at ace. It's 3/16, and I cut it 2 pieces about that long. And I drilled holes in the end. The reason I picked brass, there's 2 reasons to pick brass. One, brass is mostly copper, so electricity goes through it pretty easily. And second, you can drill holes in it. If you ever try and drill holes in copper, you'll break your bits. Copper grabs steel. It's amazing. I mean, it's like you pour glue in there. It's just, and there goes another bit. So, but brass is lubricated. And so I drilled some holes in the tip. I drilled some holes in the side and put a little tap and some set screws. Little tiny set screws. And then I bought I bought 2 sizes of nichrome wire. I found these on eBay. You can find them in lots and lots of places. And I drilled 16th-inch holes in the brass rod, so I needed a wire that was thinner than a 16th to go in the holes. I think that's about 18 gauge, maybe 16 gauge, I can't remember. But I bought, this is 20 gauge and 24. The 24 is too thin. It bends when you press it. So I made some shapes. You can make all kinds of shapes. You can make a knife blade. You can make, this one's a spiral. Can you see it? So you can bend these shapes, and now I will show you what they do. There's a fire extinguisher right there in case anybody needs one. I won't.
So you're using the variac to vary the input voltage to the battery charger?
Shoot the fireworks.
Yeah.
You put them out.
Lars, on the American Woodworking website,
They have a good article on this.
they did. I built one from their plans, and it uses the RCA jacks so you can.
Yeah, so you can.
And it's air cooled.
Those aren't the
Right, he has an air tube. Because what happens is this thing's going to get red hot. Let me demonstrate.
I will run it absolutely.
I know, but they're
Starting
really
slow.
not the same for moving. They get
There we go.
No.
No? So then you have a pretty good 12 off.
And then where'd that piece go?
No, they make, that's what they all do.
And so the guy who told me this is you have to get a recliner. So you're like this.
They are.
And you put it in your lap. And so when you touch it like this,
That's exactly right.
the smoke goes up. Instead of, my son started doing it like this. And so this isn't like the old days in the Boy Scouts where you touch it and then it takes 30 minutes to get hot again.
Exactly.
So you can make whatever tips you want. If you want to shape them with a hammer, do it like this when they're hot. The metal's softer. I have a railroad rail. The other thing that's nice is it's 12 volts or less, so there's no danger of the electrical pain.
It's all curved.
It's all thermal. There's enough thermal. And then on the back side, so the brass rods go all the way through. This is the other end of the brass rod, and it's warm already.
When you soldered to the brass rod, is that what you?
I drilled it in again on this side and put another set screw on this side and then put a heat shrink over it. And then the brass rods are mounted inside of here on little standoffs. I cut a nut in half, glued a half nut to each brass rod, stuck it in, put little wedges between the brass rods, and put more glue. And the glue is JB Weld. It's and steel epoxy. It's electrically and thermally insulating, they say. Although I read one guy, he glued magnets onto this. It's got steel in it. He glued magnets onto something, and the magnets lined up the steel fibers. So it did conduct. But normally they don't touch. I don't know what to think. But anyway, it gets warm after a while.
So the brass rods are getting warm too.
The brass rods were meant to pull the heat out. And the one in American Woodworker, they run a little air tube up here and stick it right in there and just have a constant flow. And that's I wanted to say that. The American Woodworker has a nice video on it. It's on YouTube. Anybody can find it. It's free. They charge me net $10 for the magazine article to see how they built it. I did not follow their directions.
But did you pay the $10?
I did pay the $10. And then so far I've made a little collection of, made one that...
Why don't you put them on the headstock? There you go.
It's a fish scale. So I pounded this flat and then bent it over 90 degrees.
Right.
And you start to get an effect like this one right here.
If you know what transformers are,
I tried a weaving pad.
you can do it just with a transformer.
And just cross hatching. You can go try. You can try a whole bunch of different patterns. This is just a palette to try out different textures.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought no one wanted to see that. I looked at it.
So I was just trying a bunch of different stuff. And if you look up, this is called pyrography. It's writing with fire, right? That's what pyrography means. When I typed it into the Durham County Library website, they were sure I mistyped it and I meant pornography.
One way you get the FBI, the other one you get...
that site.
The other way you get Homeland Security.
I wanted to show you one more tip. This is supposed to look like a spring. So you use this spring. So some of them are called brands. Like the spiral. The spiral and the spring are called brands, because you just brand it like on a cap. But some of them, like this one, is just a writing tip. You just bend a real tight bend. And you do not have to worry about the electrical flow. The wires can touch. And the electricity will do whatever it wants, but it's heating it up so much, the heat just goes everywhere. So you don't have to worry about them touching. So you can make twists and ties and everything else.
No, that I didn't try. In fact,
And then I pounded this one really thin. So, and then I sharpened it on a stone. I got out a sharpening stone and sharpened it like a knife blade. And the advantage of that is, especially if it's curved, is the ability to,
Yeah, a little bit.
you can do these curved lines, and you don't have jiggles. Your like jiggly fingers, because you're cutting with this thing, plowing through the wood. And if you want to curve, you just lean it over. It's a slightly curved tip, and so it'll curve around real
Won't
smooth.
get caught in the grain.
It doesn't get caught. It doesn't care about grain. I mean,
It's too hot, too fast.
It is just going through.
You could probably sign your pieces and actually look like a signature.
Yep. And so when we were doing this
For
guy
some of us,
had
that wouldn't be a
like
good
6
thing.
of these in his mouth at once. And he'd pull out another one and put it in. He just kept it in his
Well, you want to
mouth.
watch your timing on that.
Put the seal on before you put them in.
Yeah, I'll show you all this. So I've had a good time with this kind of burning as well as just a big torch. And I highly recommend it. I can get plans for anybody. He doesn't post them on the web because of liability. He doesn't want anybody to come back and sue him. But the battery charger he recommends is one by Napa. They don't have it in the stores, but you can order it. And I think it's $40, and it's got a nice thing about it, it's a plastic case, so you don't have to ground the switch. You open it up, put the dimmer switch in line with the inside, the incoming power, just drill a hole, mount it on the front of this thing, and it's compact. It's more compact than this one. And it's got a 612 volt.
Is it
and
a
it's 10 amps.
transformer? Is it Eddie?
It's a battery charger.
Yeah, not all of them have transformers. though.
Yeah, these depend on
Some of
being
them are
regular
switches.
transformers.
Right.
Just dumb old transformers. It's got a a primary and secondary.
So you could probably get any old tube TV and get
You
the
could build whatever
6.3
you want,
volt AC.
depending on what you're comfortable with. What it takes to light these things up is about 6 or 8 volts at 10 amps. So 50, 60, 70 watts will light up the. So less than 100 watts will easily light these up. And the nichrome wire, of course, is the key. I mean, people either know about nichrome wire or they've never heard about it. And so nichrome wire, if you haven't heard about it, nickel and chromium makes all the heating elements in your toaster, your oven, your baseboard heater. It's this nickel chromium wire that's getting hot. It's got the right amount of resistance. I bought 20 and 24. The 24 is too skinny. The 20 is good. The 18 is a heavier, it's a heavier line, is the 18. And I don't think 16 will fit in the holes I drilled. But it's not very much. One of those spools is $8 or $10.
Yeah, I bought some.
So, and you can probably get it locally somewhere as well.
Probably make 7,000 or 8,000 gifts out of one spool too.
You can use 2
inches.
inches, and it's 30 feet. I mean, you buy an 18 and I'll buy a 22, and I'll give you half of mine. Whatever, or I'll just order them both, whatever. It's fun stuff to play with. I really enjoy the burning. But again, is that a term? It's post-decoration. It's post-embellishment, post-turning embellishment. And so,
Surface treatment.
and it can really do some fun stuff. Oh, and I brought. Ever since the library was not having pornography books, it looks like they went and invested in how to burn. So people burn different things. They burn leather, they burn boards, they burn paper. People will take tips like this on thick paper and make decorative.
Not like yours on paper.
But then, and wood seems to be the least favorite medium for burning. But you can get some really nice designs. You can get some ideas of what to do. So I wanted just to show you that. That really caught my eye. So this is a gourd, and it's got some woman cradling, you know, she's a mermaid or something with long hair. You know, it would look really good on a vase. It would just look fantastic. And I've heard other people who get images off the internet, print them on a laser printer, which has plastic ink, and then they wrap the paper on a wood turner and either iron it or hit it with alcohol or something that will dissolve the plastic. And the little bit of the black will go on the wood, and then you just burn where it is. Or you can just glue a piece of paper on with the stuff out and burn what you want.
You can also use transfer paper.
Right, transfer paper.
Inkjet printers that do the same thing if you put a flat heating element against them.
Right. So anyway, the burn-in is just another way you can make your pieces look more interesting and have a good time doing it.
You said some word about the torch, about what kinds of things you use.
The torch, I did a demo last week. When I burn with the torch, I usually just burn the whole thing in, you know, maybe 1/16 of an inch, and steel wool it or steel brush it, brass brush it off, burn it again, and do that like 3 times. And the softwood, the grain, penetrates much more quickly, and so the grain really jumps out. You can sandblast it or brush it afterwards. The sandblasting, you can get most of the char off. But what amazes me is when I hit it with something like tung oil, it almost instantly turns black again. Even though it looked fairly light, but it turned really dark. Some people paint the burned wood afterwards because if you have crevices or anything, it's hard to get the flame down in the crevice, and so you get this irregular burn. Yeah, it just depends, burns back, whatever it is from Home Depot. And it's fun. Well, one way it's kind of interesting is that the woods that people don't generally turn are really fun to burn, like pine. Pine is fantastic. It just looks so good.
Especially the fast growth where you have big
you get real even circles on the straight trees, and you can just have a ball with the grain, with the grow trains on the pine.
I
on a vase or something.
tried your burning technique with a brush burner, head about this long, flame about this long, and it did a 10-inch sphere really quick.
That was the first one we did.
It's on a 20-gallon propane tank too.
The first one we did.
Now it's an 8-inch sphere.
The first one my son and I did was about an 18-inch sweet gum bowl that had cracked down the side, and we took one of those big, you know, you can use it from 6 feet away.
Oh, I know.
And it hits the bottom of the bowl, and it's just like a jet engine. And the flame's coming right back around. We had a great time.
How's son doing?
Big cancel.
I still don't have grass growing there.
So anyway, that's how I have fun on weekends, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.